says this meeting is being live streamed.
Yes, Prabhuji, please say got it.
Got it.
Yes.
I got it. I'm not so savvy with computers like you, young Indian gentlemen.
We are also getting old, so very soon my son will be much smarter than me, and I'll be saying the same thing. So thank you so much. No problem.
I'm learning now. I think when I was a young man, we didn't have all this stuff.
Yeah, not in my childhood until I became maybe 20-year-old. So.
Will I, when I sing Radha Madhava, will I be able to hear people respond or no?
It's up to you. It will be a little bit noisy, but if you like, I can just give you the company.
Huh?
I mean, if everybody sings, then it's going to be a little noisy. So we'll be muted, but I can sing just to give you the company. So you can lead and then I'll follow you.
Okay.
We can start now.
Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana.
Yasoda Nandana Brajajana
Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana.
Yasoda Nandana
Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya
Jaya
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupada, Paramahansa, Vajracharya, still to the Sister Shri Shri Mother's Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti
Jai
Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem
Jai
Sikahosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri
Jai
Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai,
Jai
Dam Ki Jai, Navadvip Maya Pradam
Jai
Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai,
Jai
Yamuna Mai Gangamati Ki Jai,
Jai
Krishna Balarama Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Nataraj Ki Jai,
Jai
Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai,
Jai
Gaur Pramanandi,
Hari
Hari Hari
Hari
Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
All
Krishna
glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
All
Krishna
glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna
All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Guranga. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So I'm just going to take 2 minutes to do some introduction and then we can start the lecture. Hare Krishna, everybody. Dandot Pranams. I welcome you all to our Sunday Feast lecture. So once again, today we have a very, very special guest. His Grace Paran Karta Das Prabhu. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for giving your precious time with us tonight. Prabhu is disciple of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. He was initiated in 1974 in Chicago. Originally, Prabhu is from Chicago, and he did book distribution there. That was his major service at O'Hare International Airport. So recently, he is working on a book, and the title of that book is going to be "Oh Hare Krishna Airport." Prabhupada said that "Oh Hare" is basically Hare Krishna Airport. So beautiful title, Prabhu. Oh Hare. I was thinking somebody should write book on that because Prabhupada made comment about that. So oh
Prabhupada
Hare
did it a
Krishna.
long time ago.
Yes. So, oh Hare Krishna Airport. That's the topic of our presentation today, and also that's the topic of that's the title of the book that Prabhu is writing. Prabhu was with Srila Prabhupada almost many months in Vrindavan with him from 1976 to mid of the 1977. And then also he was residing in St. Louis from 2000 to 2010, almost 10 years. And he did book distribution with Mahamuni Prabhu. Mahamuni Prabhu was also one of the residents of St. Louis. Now he lives in San Diego, one of the very famous devotee. And I'm sure many of you might have heard about Mahamuni Prabhu. So Prabhu was basically doing service with him and mostly book distribution. After departure of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, and on the request of my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, Prabhu was asked to come and help Gita Nagari. So there, he took multiple services and he helped Gita Nagari after departure of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. Also, Prabhu has a very, very exalted family. 3 of his sons, all of them are initiated and they are disciple of Radhanath Swami Maharaj. One of them, Tulsi Anand Prabhu, was initiated with me, or I was initiated with him in 2012 when we got initiated in Gita Nagari. So very, very fortunate to have Prabhu association. As I said before, that the whole family is Krishna conscious. All of his sons are exalted devotee, very dedicated to support our society. Last but not least, Prabhu himself is a very, very serious devotee, and his life is, full with austerity, very, very austere life he lives. So we are very, very fortunate once again to have association of His Grace Taran Karta Das Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Back to you.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Janjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchikapa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. It's been a while since I've given a class, since I've been writing and kind of on my own. I have a motorhome, which I'm sitting in right now, up in Northern California, where it's a little cool. So I've been writing for, I started the book a few years ago in India, in Udupi. And then I had some health problems. I had a heart attack and I had bypass surgery. My eyes went out, all kinds of stuff. But now I'm feeling better. And by Krishna's grace, my eyes are much better. So I'm finishing this book this year. And I hope you can all pray for me to get it done. It'll be devotees will very much like to read this book. It'll be a fun book to read. So I want to just read from Srimad Bhagavatam today. First canto, 8th chapter, text number 19. I chose this verse because I've been reading Bhagavatam and this is where I'm kind of reading from. So the verse is Maya Gyan Vanicha Chanam Anadhoksajam Avyayam Na Lakshaye Muda Drisha Najo Nayad Harayata. The translation reads, being beyond, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So we'll read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna affirms that less intelligent persons mistake him to be an ordinary man like us, and thus they deride him. The same is confirmed herein by Queen Kunti. The less intelligent person are those who rebel against the authority of the Lord. Such persons are known as asuras. The asuras cannot recognize the Lord's authority when the Lord himself appears amongst us as Ram, Nrsimha, Varaha, or in his original form as Krishna. He performs many wonderful acts which are humanly impossible, as we shall find in the 10th canto of this great literature. Lord Sri Krishna exhibited his humanly impossible activities even from the days of his lying on the lap of his mother. He killed the Putana witch, although she smeared her breast with poison just to kill the Lord. The Lord sucked her breast like a natural baby, and he sucked out her life air also. Similarly, he lifted Govardhan Hill, just as a boy picks up a frog's umbrella, and stood several days continuously just to give protection to the residents of Vrindavan. These are some of the superhuman activities of the Lord described in the authoritative Vedic literatures like the Puranas, the Itihasas, the histories, and the Upanishads. He has delivered wonderful instructions in the shape of Bhagavad Gita. He has shown marvelous capacities as a hero, as a householder, as a teacher, and as a renouncer. He is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such authoritative personalities as Vyas, Devala, Asita, Narada, Madhva, Shankara, Ramanuj, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Injira Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta, and all other authorities of the line. He himself has declared as much in many places of the authentic literatures, and yet there is a class of men with demonic mentality who are always reluctant to accept the Lord as the supreme absolute truth. This is partially due to their poor fund of knowledge and partially due to stubborn obstinacy, which results from various misdeeds in the past and present. Such persons could not recognize Lord Sri Krishna, even when he was present before them. Another difficulty is that those who depend more on their imperfect senses cannot realize him. Those persons are like modern scientists. They want to know everything by their experimental knowledge, but it is not possible to know the Supreme Person by imperfect experimental knowledge. He is described herein as a hoaxija, or beyond the range of experimental knowledge. All our senses are imperfect. We claim to observe everything and anything, but we must admit that when we can observe things under certain measures. The Lord is beyond the observation of sense perception. Queen Kuti accepts that this deficiency of the conditioned soul, especially of the women class, those who are less intelligent. For less intelligent men, there must be such things as temples, mosques, churches, so that they may begin to recognize the authority of the Lord and hear about him from authorities in such holy places. For less intelligent men, this beginning of spiritual life is essential, and only foolish men decry the establishment of such places of worship, which are required to raise the standard of spiritual attributes for the mass of people. For less intelligent persons, bowing down before the authority of the Lord, as generally done in the temples, mosques, and churches, is as beneficial as it is for the advanced devotees to meditate upon him by active service. So this is a very beautiful verse with so many instructive points in it. And here we see the word Jana Javanika, which means curtain, and Maya, which means deluding. So there is a curtain that Krishna puts up through his Maya that people you cannot understand. And how do we get to understand Krishna, even in a minute way? Is that we have to have, first of all, a spiritual master. And Krishna makes that very clear in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidhi paripratena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Krishna says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master and inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The spiritual master can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So the first thing is to accept the spiritual master. And then the spiritual master imparts this very powerful and important knowledge unto us. And what is that first step of knowledge? Is that we're not this material body. And when we start to realize that we're not this material body, that curtain kind of starts to lift a little bit, the curtain of Maya, so we can see Krishna's actual position in this world. And Krishna says also in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyang evang yovidi tattvataha, that simply by knowing his janma, his birth, his activities like that, that one can enter into the spiritual kingdom. And that is his mercy, that Krishna is always trying to reclaim the spirit souls from this material world. And without Krishna, that we're all lost and we're simply rotating in the material world over and over and over and over again. And that is the whole point of the human form of life, is to ask these questions. Who am I? Where do I come from? What is life all about? Like that. And then we can understand that this body is only breathing and walking and living due to the spirit soul being present within the body. So we can take advantage of all this knowledge that Srila Prabhupada has given us, and we can become blissful and we can become Krishna conscious. This whole cosmic manifestation cannot be, does not even move unless Krishna enters every atom, every single atom. And by him entering the atoms, then life in the cosmic creation starts to move. And that is Krishna's power and glory. And so the material scientists are always trying to come up with this theory or that theory. I remember one time in Chicago, we were on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. It was a very beautiful walk. We used to walk by Northwestern University, very beautiful grounds by Lake Michigan. Maybe many of you, some of you have been there. And at the point where Prabhupada would turn around and go back to his car, at that point, we could see he was going to sit down in the grass where the sand was. Excuse me. So Prabhupada, as soon as he sat down, we put our chatters down. Prabhupada sat. And as soon as he sat, he started to blast the material scientists. And he was always blasting those material scientists because he knew they were the ones leading everyone to hell with all their bogus theories and their different nonsense ideas of how life began. So Prabhupada he's talking about how they dig up bones. He says they dig up bones from the earth and they think they have conclusive evidence how life began. So Prabhupada, with his beautiful lotus hands, he started to dig into the sand. He said, they are digging, 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 just like the dog. Therefore, it is dog philosophy. Of course, we all started to laugh, and it was a very deep realization. Yes, that is how they try to find knowledge, by digging in the material world. And that is called ascending knowledge, trying to understand life, how it began, with your small, limited mind, which is so small and so limited, just like Dr. Frog. You all know the example of Dr. Frog. He's in his little well, and another frog comes and says, "Oh, I have seen the Atlantic Ocean, and it's so big." And Dr. Frog says, "Well, how big is it? 6 feet? 6 feet long?" "Oh, no, it's very, very big." He said, "Then what, 8 feet?" Like that. So they can't understand the vastness and the greatness of Krishna. So on that morning walk, it was really funny. At the end of the walk, you can read all this in the book, Oh Hare Krishna Airport. There will be so much nectar to read in there. But at the end of that walk, there were many sannyasis. It was Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Vishnu Jan Maharaj, Sudama Maharaj, I think Satsrup Maharaj. There was probably at least 8 or 10 sannyasis, and they all had their dandas. So one boy, just a regular boy, Karmi boy, came up on his bicycle, and I was always next to Prabhupada because I was the Kshatriya of the temple. So I got to be next to Prabhupada. And this boy came up on his bike, and he looks at Prabhupada and he says, "Hey, how come some of those guys are carrying those big sticks?" talking about the sannyasis, dandas. And Prabhupada said, to chase away dogs. So, so all the devotees laughed very heartily. And it was a great realization that, yeah, that's right. Taking sannyas and being Krishna conscious in any form, way, shape, or form is chasing away the dogs of Maya. So that's what we're doing in Krishna consciousness. You know, we're trying to chase away these dogs of Maya so we can become more and more Krishna conscious. And let's see. And Krishna Prabhupada says in the purport that the less intelligent people are people who become rebellious of Krishna. And that was why material world was created in the first place, because we were rebelling against Krishna. We want to be like Krishna. And then we become covered over here. But Krishna is a hoaxaja. You can't understand him through material sense perception. And these senses have the four faults, which we make mistakes, we have imperfect senses, we're illusions, and we have tendency to cheat, like that. So how can we understand? This is the ascending process of trying to understand Krishna, the absolute truth with your small little mind. The process, right? Which means that we accept the knowledge coming down from the authorities, from Krishna himself, from Brahma, from Vyas, from Narada, and like that, all the way down. And Prabhupada mentions so many here: Vyas, Devala, Asita, Narada, Madhava, Sankara, Ramanuja, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and of course, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, our beloved Srila Prabhupada, who saved us. And just see how kind, one of the 26 qualities of a devotee is kind, so compassionate. And Prabhupada was so kind, in so many ways. I mean, even before he came to America, he was writing his BTG articles, publishing his editing, publishing, and going out and distributing on the streets of Delhi when it's over. You know how all of you who are from India know how hot it is in Delhi, especially in the summertime. It's unbearable. And Prabhupada would go out and distribute. So he was the original book distributor. And sometimes he would even pass out and people would come and they would help him and, you know, give him some water and take him under the shade. But his determination was second to none. And he was kind in many ways. This quality, one of the 26 qualities of a devotee, this kindness is exhibited in Prabhupada in so many ways. Just his desire to come to America. I mean, all of you have been to Vrindavan, and you know how, when I was in Vrindavan with Prabhupada in 76, it was so much different than it is now. Now it's hustle and bustle. You know, there's so many but we were, back in those days, we were in the country with Prabhupada. Krishna Balaram Mandir was in the country. You could wake up in the morning and you didn't hear any cars or anything. All you heard was a few birds. You can listen to lectures back then. In November, I was in Vrindavan with Prabhupada, September, October, and November, 3 months straight from in 1976. And when you can listen to those, you can look them up and listen to those lectures, and all you hear is a couple little birds, you know. You'd hear Prabhupada's voice echoing in Krishna Balaram temple. And it was so beautiful back then and peaceful. So this is where Prabhupada was living before he came to America, in beautiful Vrindavan. And he gave all that up to come to America. Can you imagine? And not knowing anything about America, really, you know. And he begged Sumati Maharaji to get for the ticket on his cargo ship. Prabhupada had nothing. He had no money. He had a few books, you know. And that was his kindness. That was his kindness, to step onto that Jaladuta, to get onto that ship and come here and save our wretched souls, you know. When Prabhupada came to America in 65, I was 10 years old. I wish I could have met Prabhupada when I was 10 years old, but I had to wait another 7, 8 years. Anyway, that was his kindness to step off the Jaladuta into Boston Harbor. It was his kindness to tolerate so many unpleasantries in New York City, roaming around. And you all know the story. He had all his belongings were stolen, especially his typewriter and his writings. And Prabhupada said he felt so much distressed after that, and he wanted to go back to India. And he would go to the harbor, and he'd want to get on the ship to India, but he never got on because it was his mission to spread Lord Chaitanya's movement all over the world. And that's what he did. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was in the spiritual sky, and Narada Muni came to visit the Lord. And when Narada Muni arrived, he saw that on one side, Rukmini with all the queens of Dwarka, they were fanning Mahaprabhu. And he was sitting on a beautiful golden throne. And on the other side was Rukmini. Was Sri Radha with all the gopis there, and they were fanning Mahaprabhu on the other side. And Narada Muni was very distressed. He was very, very distressed. And dear Narada, why are you so distressed? He told Mahaprabhu, he explained the plight, the terrible situation of the living entities within Kali Yuga. And then Mahaprabhu got off his throne and he said, everybody listen. He said, I will descend into this Kali Yuga and I will spread my holy name everywhere to relieve these conditioned souls of all their suffering. And he said, where I do not spread my holy names, he said, I will send my Senapati Bhakta. You all know that name? Senapati Bhakta? It means commanding general devotee. I will send my commanding general devotee to spread my name to every town and village. And that person, of course, was His Divine Grace, our beloved Srila Prabhupada. And that's exactly what Srila Prabhupada did. And look how he did it with a handful of teenagers. He had one disciple, then two, then three. And Prabhupada, we all know what he did in 26 Second Avenue of cooking and serving all devotees prasadam, cleaning everything, and preaching to them constantly, and always setting the example, never asking for help, just always doing it himself. But when devotees came and offered some help, and Prabhupada said, yes, you can help, you can wash the dishes, you can clean this, you can do this. And that's how he started to engage devotees and devotees to Prabhupada. And Krishna empowered them to help his pure devotee spread this Krishna consciousness all over the world. And it's a beautiful beginning. It's a beautiful story and pastime of Srila Prabhupada, how this movement began. But don't ever forget that Prabhupada's real mission, his real mission and instruction from his Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was to print books and distribute books in every language on the planet, especially in the English-speaking world. And Prabhupada took it to heart. And that was really his mission. And all these great devotees in the beginning who helped spread this movement, and my dear friend, godbrother, Shamsundar and Guru Das, and all of them went to London and they met the Beatles. It was an extraordinary time. It was an extraordinary time during the Vietnam War, and all the people were taken to the streets, and Prabhupada walked right in the middle of it, right in the middle of it all. He just sat in Thompson Square Park and chanted the Maha Mantra, and that's how the movement began. And then in 1972, 1973 is when it's an amazing thing, Prabhu's. That's when all the book distributors joined the movement. That's when I joined. That's when Manasuda, Vaishesika, all of us, we all joined at that time to distribute Prabhupada's books, and we gave our young lives to do it. And that's why I'm writing this book, Oh Hare Krishna Airport, It's more like an autobiography, but it's there's some real nectar in it. I mean, I have 25 interviews from the stalwarts that were distributing in the airport. There were the Chicago devotees, and then there was Tripurari Maharaj, great Tripurari Maharaj, my dear brother and friend, and his party, and so many great devotees on his party, Kavi Chandra, Keshava Bharti, Vaisheshika, Suradas, Sarvabhauma, Kalki, all these stalwart devotees that you'll be reading about in this book. And Krishna, I can see Krishna has picked me to write this book because I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. I became a devotee in Chicago. The two, you'll read about the two, Baldy and Curly, who were the two undercover policemen in the airport. They used to patrol my neighborhood when I was a kid, and they knew my father. And my father had a very, very famous Italian restaurant, and he would always feed the police, but he never charged them money. And so these Baldy and Curly, when you'll read this in the book, but I'll just tell you a little bit, that when they saw me, I first went out to O'Hare Airport in '73. I was saffron and shaved up with teeth, and it wasn't even really legal. We kind of had to sneak around a little bit. But Baldy and Curly were there, and they became the undercover cops for O'Hare. And they saw me, and they like came up close, and they said, "Tommy," because they knew me when I was a kid. And here I am, all shaved up, saffron, and they go, "Tommy," and I go, "Yeah." They go, "What are you doing? Does your father know what you're doing?" I said, "Yes," and he approves of it. And he goes, Curly goes, "And by the way, what are you doing?" I said, "We're trying to spread this Krishna consciousness and make the world a better place by making people through knowledge and wisdom and the holy name love God more and more." And they just like kind of walked away scratching their heads. But I had so many encounters with them, and there were so many fights in the airport. Can you imagine these days trying to fight in the airport? You'd be in jail in 2 seconds, labeled a, terrorist or homeland security stuff and all this stuff. But there were many fights, and we never started a fire. We never just went up and hit people and like that. It was only if somebody hit a devotee was there a fight. And I was raised in martial arts. My father was a professional boxer in the United States Marine Corps, and my family was all Marines. So he taught me boxing when I was a kid, and he took me to all these classes, and it was all Krishna's plan. I mean, I had a lot of fights, and you'll read about them. And Baldy and Curly never arrested me. They never. Sometimes they would arrest other devotees, but they would never arrest me. So Krishna made all those arrangements for distributing Prabhupada's books. And I tell you, O'Hare in those days was the busiest airport in the world. It was overwhelming. And you had to be completely fixed to distribute books in that airport. And the key was japa and sadhana and being totally Krishna conscious. Otherwise, I saw devotees come there for a day and they just couldn't do it. Tripurari Maharaj would bring devotees from other cities around. When all the airports got opened legally, he would bring devotees from other cities to do O'Hare, because he said, if you can do O'Hare, you can do any airport in the country. So it was really an intense service, and I wouldn't trade it for billions of universes of material opulence. And people, if somebody came up to me, somebody asked me this question: if someone came up to you, some demigod, and said, you can go back in time and not serve Prabhupada and have billions of universes full of opulence and sense gratification you can't even imagine, or sleep on the floor in an Evanston, Chicago temple, what would you do? It's not even a thought. I sleep on the floor in that temple and serve my Guru Maharaj to spread this Krishna consciousness, this movement of Mahaprabhu all over the world. It's such an extraordinary movement. There is no movement like Lord Chaitanya's movement in this world. This Sankirtan movement, is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. This is Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. And we're so fortunate, Prabhus, to be in this movement. Don't ever forget your great fortune. Take advantage of it. Read Prabhupada's books, or listen to Prabhupada. We're so fortunate we can listen to Prabhupada's lectures on audio. Always stay in touch with Srila Prabhupada. And when you sing the Maha Mantra, always sing Rama, not Ramo. Right? Ramacharya.
Yes, Prabhu.
I was telling Ramacharya this morning that Vishnu Jan Maharaj, who was like the Narada Muni of ISKCON back in the day, he was such an amazing devotee. Everybody he met became Krishna conscious. Prabhupada said his singing would save the world. One day he was singing this harmonium and he sang Ramo with an O a couple times, and Prabhupada stopped him. This is the greatest kirtan leader that the world has ever seen. Prabhupada said, why are you trying to ruin Lord Chaitanya's movement? It is not Ramo, it is Rama. So there's a little bit of an infection. Prabhupada, by singing the Maha Mantra properly, let's start there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Is there any questions?
Prabhu, there will be so many questions because the topic was so interesting that I'm sure our generation would definitely like to hear more about Srila Prabhupada. First and foremost, I deeply want to thank you for all the sacrifice that you did to give us opportunity to be Krishna conscious. So really appreciate whatever all of your generation's devotee did and supported Srila Prabhupada. So thank you so much for everything, Prabhuji. So we'll open the forum for QA, and I'm sure there'll be so many questions to go through. And please do not worry. We can go a little late and address all the concerns and questions that devotee has. So please go ahead and start, unmuting yourself. If you like, turn your camera on, and you can directly ask your question. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So what am I supposed to do?
So they will basically start asking you questions, Prabhu. Devotees will start.
There's one devotee, Venu.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Vena, Hare Krishna. Venu
Please
Gopal.
accept my humble obeisances, Prabhu.
Please accept mine, Prabhu. Hare
Glory to
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada.
Glory to Prabhupada. Hare Bol.
Thank you very much for enlightening us and reminding us of Prabhupada's kindness today. It was very amazing to hear. It's always good to remind ourselves about Prabhupada's kindness. Sometimes we take it for granted. Yeah. Without Prabhupada's mercy, I would not have gotten any Krishna consciousness, or I would not be in this.
All of us.
In India, I did not appreciate the Bhagavad Gita or anything, any teachings of anything. So thanks to Prabhupada and thanks to devotees like you who propagated and kept this movement alive for 50 years. To help people like me. Prabhu, if you could share how you came into Krishna consciousness, what brought you into Krishna consciousness? I didn't hear that part. It would be very nice.
Oh, you have to read it in the book, Prabhu.
Okay.
I can tell you in a nutshell.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic. I'm Italian. My mother and father are Italian. I was raised Catholic, and I always loved Jesus. But when I got older, like when I was 16, 17, my father bought a farm north of Chicago, almost in Wisconsin. And I started to ask more questions, God, who are you, Jesus? Who's your father? You always talk about your father, but who is your father? I would ask these questions. And one day I had a dog. He was a Doberman Pinscher, and he was my best friend. And I was walking in the forest with him, and he actually found a Krishna book in the forest, my dog. And I picked it up and read it, and that was it. I became Krishna conscious. I was 17. And when I was 18, I joined the movement. So Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
You can read all about it in the Oh Hare Krishna book. Oh,
Okay,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna Airport.
Yeah, we will eagerly await the book, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Thank you. Thank you very much, Venu Gopal Prabhu. Okay.
Who is next? Hare Krishna. Please go ahead.
I see a
Hare Krishna,
smiling,
Prabhu. Please, my humble obeisances.
I see a smiling
It is
face.
Govilas. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Thank you so much for sharing Srila Prabhupada's anecdotes and the stories in beach and northwestern campus.
You're
Scientists
welcome.
are digging just like that.
When I go to India, they always ask me to speak, and I speak a little on philosophy, but mostly devotees want to hear about Prabhupada more than philosophy. So I'm always speaking about Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
And your dedication, like, you said that you are, choosing to sleep on the floor in the temple rather than go to the, the opulent world, even spiritual world. So that's really the goal. We can see the purity of your goal to serve Srila Prabhupada with all your heart and soul. So my question is in that, like, how do we kind of rekindle this kind of dedication at this generation? Now all of you were ready to go to jail or go to fight with the police and all the brave activities, and now we are struggling here to distribute some books or reaching out to the community, the international, like in North America, like we came from India, we got our culture, and we quickly connect with the devotees here. But how do we connect with more diverse population? That's what my thought was. What is your...
I don't think anything has really changed between the 70s and today, except a lot more technology. Like we can speak to you through here. But the main thing is, as far as you're asking about preaching and book distribution, it's the same thing. It depends on your sadhana, on how intense you chant your japa, because Krishna is in all of our hearts, right? How many times in Gita does Krishna say Hridi? I am in the heart of all living beings, right? Savasya chaham Hridi sanivasto. So many verses. So Krishna's in the heart, and by your sincerity, that person will buy a book from you. And it's not a material activity in any stretch of the imagination. It has nothing to do with material qualities of salesmanship or anything like that. It has to do with your Krishna consciousness, your sincerity to spread this knowledge to others. And there's nobody more dear to Krishna than one who is preaching this knowledge to other people, isn't it? Krishna says like that in Gita. So that was your question? That answers your question?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, so it depends on if you read the book, Oh Hare Krishna Airport, you'll see how all of us, Tripurari Maharaj, Vaishesika, myself, all the airport devotees, we would chant our rounds together in the temple room so powerfully. Sometimes we would be in a circle and we would just Hare Krishna, and just praying to Krishna to help us please Srila Prabhupada, to help us please distribute these books for Prabhupada, because it was Prabhupada's #1 order. In the book I write many letters Srila Prabhupada wrote, right, about book distribution and how to please him in the best way was to distribute his books, right? Prabhupada always said, if you want to emphasize something, you say it 3 times. And it's a saying in India, right? So they say, Prabhupada would say, if you want to please me in the best way, distribute my books, distribute my books, distribute my books. So if you want to get into that service, which is a most dynamic service, then your sadhana is number one. You're chanting your japa just as best you can every day, concentrating on the holy name. And Krishna will help you. You will see. Krishna will help you. No doubt about it. I don't think that time and circumstance has anything to do with it as far as distributing books. Like it, I mean, it was tough back in the days. It was really tough to distribute, especially in some places like in Chicago. But we did it, and we overcame the modes of material nature by our sadhana, by our japa, and that's all. There's nothing else. Manasutta Prabhu, the late Manasutta, my dearest lifelong friend and godbrother, I can't tell you what kind of a devotee this devotee was. Excuse me. He passed away in India about 4 years ago, but he would beat out Vaisheshika. He would beat out Tripurari Maharaj. And I asked him one time, how do you do that? How do you beat Tripurari Maharaj? How do you beat Vaisheshika? How do you beat Praghosh? How do you beat all these great book distributors? And he said one word, japa. Because he came into the scene of the airport from Suradas's party. Suradas had a traveling party, and he was kind of austere and heavy. And Manu came through. You'll read about it in the book. He came through, and he just told me when you can stay on this traveling party. I said, well, just come to Chicago. We do a lot of books there. We do tons of books, And he turned into the biggest book distributor. Just amazing devotee. He was so humble and kind, and always chanted very powerful japa. And we always chanted, even every winter I would go to India from 2000 till he passed away 4 years ago. And he had a farm in Udupi, outside of Udupi. And I would spend like 4 or 5 months with him. Of course, we would travel to Vrindavan and Mayapur. And we'd go to Chowpatty, see Radhanath Swami and Juhu and see Bhima. But mostly we spent there, and he was still always chanting exceptional japa. And that is the goal to our Krishna consciousness, that we follow these 4 regulated principles and we chant really good rounds. And then your service becomes a pleasure. It doesn't become an endeavor. It's a fact.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I have 2 questions for you. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. It was very nectarian. I wanted to hear more and more about you sharing Prabhupada. So inspiring. The love for Prabhupada and for your Guru Maharaj, when you mentioned it, was so nectarian to hear.
Thank you, Krishna.
Prabhu, my first question is, I missed the first part of the class, first a few minutes. I don't know if you shared it. Can you please share your first encounter with Prabhupada?
My first encounter. I've had a lot of encounters, but I write about that in the book. But I'll tell you, because you're such a nice devotee, I can see that. My first encounter with Prabhupada, besides finding Krishna book, was when 1974 Srila Prabhupada came to Chicago for Rath Yatra. And he only stayed a few days because he had to go to San Francisco. And but my first encounter was Prabhupada came, the airplane pulled up to the gate. And in those days, anybody could go to the gate to greet somebody, but now you can't do that. You have to have only the people with a ticket, right? So we're all there, and there were hundreds of devotees, kirtans going on. It was really a sight to see. And the plane is pulling up, and the anticipation is growing and growing, and the doors open up, and there were so many devotees, I couldn't see Prabhupada, but you could hear everyone's reaction, and I just paid my obeisances. And when I got up, there was Srila Prabhupada, and it was so overwhelming. Words cannot really describe it. But Prabhupada was so effulgent, and everything kind of like animated. I don't know. It was just so blissful. Like you could cut the bliss of ecstasy with a knife. And I could see that there were other people with Prabhupada that you couldn't see. I could actually see their auras. And I don't know, could have been any demigods. I don't know, but there were other people there. The devotees, some devotees didn't see what I saw, but I saw it. And so then all of a sudden, Jagadish, he was our GBC, he stuck an umbrella in my hand. But it wasn't like an ordinary light umbrella. It was very heavy. It was from the old Vyasa, and it had a big conduit pipe that stretched all the way down, like past Srila Prabhupada's knees. And it was very heavy. So Jagadish said, Trana Karta, you're strong. Hold this over Prabhupada's head. You can see it on the video. The Yadubar is filming it. I was holding it over Prabhupada's head. And some devotee stepped on the back of my dhoti. And I went like back and then like forward. And I was like Krishna held me up. And, I should have just fell over. Hopefully, Krishna was protecting Prabhupada from me. Anyway, it was really heavy. And then as the procession's going on, the back of that long pipe touched the back of Prabhupada's dhoti. It didn't touch his leg, but just his dhoti a little bit. And Prabhupada stopped in the middle of this whole procession of a couple hundred devotees and kirtan devotees leaping. It was like they were leaping. It was so high. And Prabhupada stopped, turned around and looked. He wasn't angry. He was just giving me mercy. But I realized that he knew everything about me and that this was my eternal father. And it was an amazing experience, but you can read about that in the book. It was my first encounter with Prabhupada.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for sharing. So nice. Prabhu, my next question is, you have been practicing this Krishna consciousness almost 50 years now. And I just hearing you, I can feel you're still in blissful and so conviction, dedicated. So what is keeping you go in this process? If you have to tell us like a few things that's.
I would say, first and foremost for me, is the mercy Srila Prabhupada shed into my heart. And the fact that even though I was a brahmachari many years, I got married, and like Ramacharya said, I have 3 wonderful boys. 2 are initiated by Radhanath Swami. And even when I was a householder, I had my ups and downs, but I never forgot the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, ever. Because he put so much mercy into the heart, especially of the book distributors, impossible to forget. So, and I always had the association. I was very fortunate. I always lived by, wherever I lived close to a temple. So it always had association of devotees. And now that, and now that I'm older and my wife has passed and I'm wearing saffron again, I just want to give my later life to Srila Prabhupada, and that's what I'm trying to do by writing this book and keeping close association of devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. That's all.
There'll be a few more questions, as I know. This is very interesting, and definitely everybody would be interested to hear more about Srila Prabhupada and your interaction with him and all. So I would just wait for a few minutes to see if there is anybody else who has anything. Hare Krishna. Anybody has anything they would like to share, ask, comment, feedback? So one of the things that I would request, I remember when I was in Columbus, whenever Srila Prabhupada's disciple will come, three or four of us were assigned to serve and stay all all along and hear things and make a note and write some sort of diary, and that is still there. So one thing that I personally think you also do, who had personal association with Srila Prabhupada, whatever little bit memory you all had, please write in the form of book or tape or whichever way possible. Because after 50, 60, 100 years down the line, this movement will definitely grow. And at that time, devotee will be really, kind of releasing each and every word that his direct disciples are sharing and writing and leaving for coming generations. So that itself, in my opinion, is a great service for devotees who are going to join the movement in future. So thank you for writing that book, and whatever other things that you still have, which is not captured in that book, please, come up with some other ideas, and any support needed for printing or for editing, some of those kind of things, we'll try to help. We'll try to help.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramacharya Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So anybody has anything that they would like to ask? I see here. Pramdisa Prabhu, do you have anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
It was really amazing to listen, to hear from you about the whatever the realizations and the experience you had, and a lot of learning. I took a note of most of the items. Especially, I bolded the name of the book, "Oh Hare Krishna Airport," so that I should not be forgetting and taking always in front of me. Whenever it will be published, I will definitely be one of the first buyers.
Prabhupada named that book himself,
Yeah.
He called the airport, "Oh Hare Krishna Airport."
Yeah, I heard about that. That's what, as Ramacharya Prabhu said, that this book should be come out now. It's coming out, so we are all excited to read about it. And
my idea when I started to write it was to glorify the book distributors in Srila Prabhupada, so people can see, how we gave our young lives 100% to this book distribution, which was really, like I said, Prabhupada's mission. So we were very, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, if you have to rip up the marble from the temples, but print books, right? You've heard that? Yeah. So how important was that instruction? Prabhupada's mission was to print these books and to distribute them. And we gave like I said, we gave our young lives 100%, and we would do it over again.
Thank you. All I would like, I don't have any questions, but I have a request to kindly bless us so that we can continue as well. The way you dedicated your life, we just need your blessings.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Just on my side, if we can continue in our service, whatever way, with the same mood, enthusiasm, or try to be a fraction, or like a fraction of the way you or the devotees are putting their efforts. So
when I'm done with this book, I want to do a little traveling, so I'll come to St. Louis and we can have kirtan together. How about that?
Yes, that was the thing I wanted to request. You should, since you have a RV and you are driving and moving around, I think please come here and we'll spend some time. And we go for Harinam on Fridays, so Saturdays also. So if you like, we can go and do some Harinam. I mean, Bina Prabhu comes here.
When I'm done with the book, I'm going to sell this RV, but I have a van, and I'll travel around in the van.
Okay.
It's because this RV is a gas hog.
Yeah, old maybe.
But yes, I want to come through St. Louis. Usually, because of the virus, Bhima Prabhu has not come.
Yes.
But I usually always come there when Bhima's there. And so, but whether he's there or not, I promise I'll come through. We can have kirtan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Haribol. Thank you very much.
Haribol Prabhu. Thank you, Paramsar Prabhu.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna. So we can take one or two more if there is any questions. Jiwana Mataji, do you have anything that you would like to share? Are you there? Priya Mataji, Priya Devidasi.
I don't see anybody.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if they're, sometimes I have to request them because devotees are, as you know, very humble. But this is the opportunity for them to ask if they have anything about Srila Prabhupada.
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody who tuned in, for listening, and I pray Srila
Yes.
Prabhupada's mercy on all of you.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. So we'll try to just conclude in a minute. So one thing that you can do, once the books are published, maybe please send me a few copies, because I'm sure that devotees would like to get.
Yes,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
have several copies of I'll Build Temple for You by His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, the latest book that came. And
By who? By who?
Giriraj Swami Maharaj, the Juhu Temple.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Very wonderful books.
yeah, so many devotees got basically copies of that book. So likewise, if you can send me at least 1 or 2 cases, then we'll see if there's somebody interested too.
Of
It
course.
goes over the time, but
Of course. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but I'm
yes.
working diligently to, I don't want to rush it, but I'm working every day for hours on it. So it'll get done.
Thank
In
you.
God's time, it'll get done.
Yeah. So I'd just like to chant Vaishnava Pranams and then we can adjourn.
Chant.
Panchkalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya
Patitanam
Yo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. The Savior of the whole world, His Divine Grace, Shri Bhakti Yanda Swami Sai Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Krishna Karta Das Prabhu ki
Hare
jai.
Jai.
Bhakta Vrind ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Prem Nandi Hari Hari.
Haribo.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare
Thank
Krishna,
you.
everybody. Hari Bol Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
We'll stay in touch. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.